I'm not sure it's relevant now. But
it's always relevant.
no, these are just feelings, and those who know me well, they nickname me Feelings Michael. So
that's wonderful,
I am
Michael.
accustomed to processing feelings. But a couple of the feelings I had when we talked in the last session, I understand a little bit about laws of attraction. Certainly don't understand everything, but the first couple of things are statements, really. One was, I thought of the old lady last month who was 85 on a walking frame, who was raped in her own apartment or her own unit.
Yep.
Perhaps she had fear, but I found difficulty in fitting that into the laws of attraction. I can understand if Margaret went naked to Flinders Street Station on the train and she was raped.
Well, she might not be. They'll all be so shocked. And it might not be her law of attraction.
That was one statement. The second thing was to do with when Mary was talking and she mentioned the film Private Ryan and people processing their emotions.
Well, she actually mentioned that she processed her emotions.
Yeah. But I was thinking, we sit here today, this is a statement, in some kind of freedom, to whatever dimension that is, because people did go to war out of necessity.
I have to disagree with you.
Okay, right, you're allowed to.
Yep. I'll explain why. You're asking two questions, though. Let's go with the first one first, can we? The rape question first. Every law of attraction event doesn't just happen from one person's law of attraction, for a start. So, you've got a person, the old lady you mentioned. You've got her life. Her life has surrounded her with a condition, which we would call her soul condition. In other words, all the different events of her life have created within her a whole group of emotions, most of which most of us don't release. And so we carry them with us from that moment on. Does that make sense? And that emanates from us. It's like an energy field, if you like, that emanates out of us constantly, going out to the universe constantly, whatever the emotions are. So if the emotion might be, and we obviously can't question this woman, but one emotion might be, when she was 3, she actually got abused by her dad. Right? When she was 7, it happened by uncle. Right? Then she married a man she could control for 40 years. Right? Let's say this is her law. These are all events, let's say. I'm just imagining now for a moment. I'm not saying this is hers. But let's say she married a man who she could have no fear of. She had fear of men because of these events, let's say. So she married a man who she could control so that she no longer needed to have this fear, but she had security of having a man around. Now that man, after, say, 40 years of marriage, died. So she's now in a place alone, but she still has these unresolved emotions. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Inside of it. Now, there's society. Society, let's just say, society's general emotions. What are society's general emotions? Society's general emotions about general things are, don't deal with your emotions. Aren't they? Like, basically it's, don't feel anything bad, only feel the things that are good. Don't release anything bad. Don't cry all the time. If you cry all the time, you know, and the irony is if you cry sometimes, you don't cry all the time, but, you know, we don't think that. So what we do is that we've got society's viewpoint about emotion, which has also influenced her processing her emotion. Does that make sense?
Yep.
We also have society's viewpoint about rape, which is, most of the time, what is society's viewpoint about
Not
rape?
good.
That it's a horrific event, that... But ironically, society's viewpoint about child abuse isn't always the same as rape, by the way. A lot of times we overlook child abuse as a society, but we don't overlook rape, which is interesting in itself, because surely it's worse for the child being raped than it is for an adult, and yet we overlook that. So can you see society has a lot of imperfect viewpoints, even about asexual crime. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now that's all going out there as well, from every person who has that. Then there's the guy or guys who are rapists, who have a sexual anger towards women. Right? So there's them. And they haven't resolved their emotions. Their emotions probably came from their own childhood about their relationship with their own mother. Their mothers, if you do like what they've done in prisons is a summary of most rapists' childhood. and they've found that almost in every case they've had controlling and domineering mothers, right? Which is interesting in itself. Then you've got, in the spirit world, spirits surrounding this person, these rapists on earth. So this is the rapist on earth. And these are spirits who want to get these spirits raping, right? Because they've passed in the spirit world with the same sexual anger as these ones, but with no outlet for it anymore, because all the women have gone. No women in the spirit world wants to be around a guy who's like that, so they connect to these spirits. Then you have a group of women spirits in the spirit world, right, surrounding this lady who has had this child abuse, right, who are very afraid of these spirits in the spirit world who are rapists. Can you see there's a lot more at play in the law of attraction than just this lady's emotion? Can you see that for a start? We've got this lady's emotion connecting with society, this lady's emotion connecting with spirits in the spirit world, these men's emotions towards women, these are men's emotions towards spirits in the spirit world, these spirits' emotions towards women, these spirits' emotions towards these men. There's a whole dynamic going on. Now, every law of attraction is there to expose the truth. So the law of attraction exposes the truth of everyone's condition. That's its purpose. That's why God created it, right? Its purpose is to expose the entire thing to everyone involved, including the lady. Now, because of her shutdown of all of these events and what's happened as a result, and because of these connections with women and in the spirit world, and because of society viewpoint, and all of us get triggered as a result. So me just reading it in the paper makes me sick to the stomach. Does that make sense? Yep. So in the process of one of my own emotions is being triggered straight away. The society viewpoint about sexual crime is being triggered straight away by even just reading about the event. Then there's the lady's own emotions that were triggered in the process. There's these spirits' emotions who are connected with her. There's these guys' emotions. And the truth is, in this one situation, everyone has the option to act in harmony, more harmony with love, but often we don't.
Except the old lady.
No, she also has the option, actually. She could see after she's passed, right, because she was murdered, right? She could see after she's passed that actually that there was a whole group of childhood emotions she chose to not release, which was a part of the attraction that caused the event. She could choose to see that. So even though she's died, she's still got the same option. Right. Does that make sense? To deal with the emotion. And that's what God is constantly showing us, that we've actually got the option of dealing with emotion at every single moment in time, including if we pass. That's the thing. So the whole event is there to expose the truth of what's really going on. Now, for this lady, she could deal with that emotion once she passed, because she was murdered. Now, this group of men could deal with the emotion as well. And these groups of spirits could, and these groups of spirits could. Often they don't. Often what they do is just go and find these group of spirits just go and find another lady who's been abused. This group of men, after these men are incarcerated, go and find another group of men who got sexual anger. Do you know what I mean? So
poor old bleeding, damaged mum has got to die. If she's my mum, she's got to die before she learns the lesson with God.
No, she doesn't. The truth is, though, that she has been, for 85 years, very resistive towards learning the lesson. Because there would have been events all the way through her life showing her that she had this underlying emotion that she's been denying. And extreme events only happen because we deny the earlier events. That is the truth of our life. So if you have extreme events that are going on in your life, things that are very, very powerful law of attractions going on in your life, it's because you're in deep ignorance of the earlier events that were going on to expose the underlying truth. So what happens is our law of attraction gradually ramps up over our life, right? So it starts at a certain point when we incarnate, and then it slowly grows depending on what emotions we have within us until it gets to the point usually of our death. That's usually the time that the law of attraction is at the greatest point. So a lot of people die from a heart attack, right? Well, that's a slow build-up of all of this sadness inside of them that they don't want to face. And their heart attack is proof of the sadness. Does that make sense? So in every single event, there is always proof way, way, way before that we're not dealing with something. Right? But often what we do as a human is we deny it because society says deny it. People say, no, stay away from that. And then we even talk about going to visit a psychiatrist or a psychologist to deal with our emotions in a very derogatory manner, don't we? We sort of view it as, they're off to them every week. We have a bit of a chuckle about that. Often we have a terribly derogatory view of anybody who's dealing with their emotions. And all of that has had an impact on that lady.
All right.
And then caused her to make decisions all the way through her life to deny, to shut down, to stay away from her own abuse background and so forth. Now, it's highly unlikely this 85-year-old lady would ever have been raped without there being some earlier events in her life of a sexual nature with men that have caused her shame and distress that she has been unwilling to release. And I'd be perfectly happy to talk with this lady if anybody knows where she is in the spirit world and discuss with her those emotions. The issue is that we often then, as a general public, we look at that situation and say, oh, that's shocking, these men are bastards and this woman is so sad, and we make a heap of judgments, but we're not looking at the whole picture. You see, on earth, the problem is most of the time we don't know the whole picture. You don't know what kind of childhood these men have had. You've got no idea most of the time. You don't know what childhood this lady had. You don't know what decisions she made as she was growing up. God knows everything. Everything about this situation. And God's laws are perfectly poised to expose the truth about the situation at any point in time. And what I need to do at some point is have some trust that all of these different things happen as a result of God's laws being broken by someone. Right? So let's look at this. If the lady denied her own emotions for many years about abuse in her childhood, she has broken God's laws about her own love of self. Right? Because in the end, she didn't need to live this life where she was in terror all this time sexually. These men who are the rapists, the act itself is in denial of God's laws, is it not? Right? The act of raping somebody else is highly out of harmony with love. So they have huge emotions in them to deal with about why they chose that action. Right? So they have a culpability. They have some part to play in responsibility in the entire event. And the event occurs to expose the truth in the whole thing. Right. Even the truth in society. That we, as adults, judge the rape as a really bad thing, and yet we let predatory child abusers get off 1 year, 6 months, bond. Right? But we punish the rapist, right, who one act of rape rapes a woman who's an adult, and they get 15 years, and yet the man who abused 25 different children in their childhood, he gets 12 months. Right? Don't we see there's some problem with that? And I have a culpability, I'm part of society, I have a culpability with my own belief system about the child getting abused compared to an adult getting raped. And I've got a part to play in that. So even as a society, we've got individual things connected with the event. So what we need to do with every event is start seeing it in its entirety. And God sees everything in its entirety. He doesn't see things just as little bits and pieces taken out of context. He sees everything. And he sees exactly her emotions. He knows his laws operate perfectly. And even when somebody does something damaging, God's laws still operate perfectly. The person who's doing the damaging thing gets a very rapidly descending soul condition. Like, these men might have not raped before, but after they rape, their soul condition is much worse. Does that make sense? Immediately. It's an instantaneous effect on their condition. This woman who's been harmed, obviously, the only way her soul condition can go down is by her fear intensifying. But if her fear intensifies, there might be a chance she'll deal with her grief. Right? Connect to her fear and go deeper into her grief. So there's also some good things that can come out of the event if she's willing to deal with those things. Now, obviously, it would have been far better if she was willing to deal with it in her childhood, and society was saying to her, yes, you can deal with it in your childhood, we'll assist you do that, we'll assist you to deal with your emotions now, don't shut down, don't, and all these different things. And if society actually dealt with, appropriately, the abusive father and uncle or whatever else, instead of just giving him a slap over the hand and 3 months probation, right, then we might be giving a totally different message to all of these people. By the time they grow up to be this, they don't want to rape. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And if society also said to these men with huge amounts of sexual anger, all right, why have you got so much anger? What can we do to get you out of this anger pace with women and into your fear and grief with women, and eventually release this stuff that you've got with women? If society focused on that rather than just punishing the effect, then we may not have rapists who would actually rape somebody as well. And yet what do? We invest heavily. But how many of us have ever invested any of our time in helping a rapist? You've invested your time in helping a rapist, right? How many of us actually feel really sick when we feel about rapists? Like, can you see there's a lot more who feel sick about it than have helped a rapist? Now, can you see why we might not help a rapist? Because we have so much judgment straight away. Now, what I'm doing is I'm saying, yes, that is a terrible act, which automatically degrades their soul condition way below this woman's ever going to be, in terms of her condition. That degrades them. But they have a causal emotion in them as to why they did their act. And if I'm society, if I am unwilling to help the rapist, then there is going to continue to be rapists. If I'm unwilling to help the underlying causal emotion of why people rape, then, and it's not just, they shouldn't rape, by the way, there is an underlying emotional reason that causes them to do it, right, that comes from their childhood. And if I have a willingness to deal with that as a society, there will be far less rape. But all I want to do, let's face it, all I want to do is incarcerate them for 25 years and cut off their balls. Many of us, that's how we feel, isn't it? All we want to do to the rapist is actually incarcerate them, or even half of us would like to kill them, let's be frank, right? And we certainly would like to mutilate them sexually so they can't do it. Many of us feel that towards them. Are they acts of love? No. So do we think we're going to have a positive result from this incarceration and this cutting off of their testicles? No, of course we're not. And all we're going to do is create spirits who are just as rageful, just as influential in helping another group of men who are just as rageful towards women on earth and doing the same thing again. That's all we do. So we have a role in the whole thing. And this is the beauty of the law of attraction. So yes, I am saying to you that she had a law of attraction involved. Now, I don't know what it is because I haven't connected with her emotionally. And so once I do, I would be able to feel what that law of attraction is. But I'm just giving you a scenario here. These group had a law of attraction involved. These group. All of these people, including myself, the person who's reading about the event, has a law of attraction involved. And if every one of us deal with our emotions about it, right, what will happen is the world will become a better place automatically. But if every one of us deny our emotions, try to make it go away, punish the perpetrator, but don't deal with any of their emotions and so forth, the situation's just going to get worse. And that's what God's showing us.
Gotcha.
That's what God's showing us.
A really